The last night in the cold snow fell hard from the black sky. The wind screamed through the broken streets, carrying ice that cut like tiny knives. In the middle of the ruins, a woman sat on the frozen ground, her back against the wall of a collapsed house. She held her baby close to her chest, wrapping him in the only blanket she had. Her arms shook. She could no longer feel her fingers. The baby's cries were weak now, just small, tired whimpers. She pulled the blanket tighter, but the cold slipped in like a thief, stealing the little warmth they had left. The woman's name was Lyra once. She had lived in a warm home with a husband who made her laugh and a small garden where flowers grew in the sun. But that was before the war. Before the aliens came from the sky, burning cities, taking people, and leaving the rest to freeze or starve. Now, the world was only snow, ruins, and fear. A loud cracking sound echoed through the street, ice-breaking. Under heavy boots, Lyra's heart raced. She pressed her baby's face against her chest to keep him warm and silent. She listened. Nothing, just the endless howl of the wind. She tilted her head back and looked up. Snowflakes danced in the air, glowing faintly under the light of a broken street lamp. She thought about the days before all this. Days when lights stayed on, when people filled the streets, when laughter was louder than the wind. It felt like another life. Her eyelids grew heavy. The cold was not just outside anymore. It was inside her. She knew what was coming. Oh, she had seen it happen to others in the ruins. First, the shivering, then the numbness, then the quiet. She pressed her lips to her baby's forehead. His skin was so cold it scared her. Tears froze on her cheeks as she whispered, "I'm sorry, my little one." In the distance, a light flickered. Not the pale yellow of a street lamp. This light was warmer, richer, like fire. At first, she thought she was dreaming. But no, it was moving, slow and steady, growing brighter as it came closer. It didn't sway like fire on wood. It didn't blink like alien drones. It was something else. Her breath shook as she watched it. She wanted to believe it meant help was coming. But she had learned not to hope. In this world, hope often ended in pain. The light stopped. Then it began to move again, this time straight toward her. Lyra's heartbeat quickened. Should she run? But where? Her legs were too weak and her baby too fragile. She could only watch as the glow grew closer and closer until she could make out a shape in the snowstorm. It was tall, broad, a person. She blinked, her vision blurring. From the cold, she thought she saw armor, dark, heavy, scratched from battle. The figure moved with slow strength, each step crunching in the snow. When it finally stopped in front of her, she could see nothing of the face, only a dark visor reflecting the firelight it carried. She wanted to speak, to ask who he was. But her voice was gone. The figure crouched down in front of her. The firelight came from a small metal device in his hand, glowing like a captured sun. He studied her for a moment. Then, without a word, he pulled something from his back, a thick, queue-lined cloak, and wrapped it around her and the baby. The warmth hit her like a shock. She gasped, clutching the cloak tighter. The man's voice was deep, calm, and strange. "You're safe now." Safe. It was the first time she had heard that word in years. Her eyes closed before she could stop them. The warmth was too much. She wanted to hold on, to see who this man was, to understand why he had found her. But her body was too tired. The last thing she felt was strong arms lifting her from the frozen ground. The last thing she heard was his voice again, low and certain. "They won't take you tonight." When she woke, she was lying on a bed made of blankets and soft animal skins. A small fire burned nearby, its light dancing across the walls of what looked like an old stone shelter. Her baby was beside her, still wrapped in the thick cloak, his tiny chest rising and falling in slow, steady breaths. And across the fire, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, was the man. His armor was blackened and dented, marked by battles she could not imagine. His helmet lay beside him now, and his face was strange, human, but harder, sharper. His eyes watched her, not with cruelty, but with something else. Something she could not name. Before she could speak, he tossed a small bundle toward her. Inside was bread and dried meat. "You need to eat," he said. His voice was still calm, but there was a weight to it. Who are you?" she whispered. He looked at her for a long moment, as if deciding whether to answer. Finally, he said, "I'm human." She frowned. "That's impossible. Humans are gone." He finished for her. "That's what they want you to believe." She stared at him, her mind spinning. Why would the aliens lie about that? And why would a human be here, in this frozen place, saving her? Before she could ask, his eyes shifted toward the shelter's entrance. He stood slowly, gripping a strange humming weapon from beside the fire. "What is it?" she asked. "Fear." Rising in her chest, "They've found us," he said. Cliffhanger. Outside. Heavy footsteps crunched in the snow, growing closer. The man from the fire, the wind outside, roared like a living beast. But inside the stone shelter, the fire's glow felt too small to fight the darkness. Lyra sat frozen in place, clutching her baby close. The man stood near the doorway, his strange black armor catching the flicker of the flames. His weapon hummed a low, dangerous sound, like metal ready to bite. Heavy footsteps crunched in the snow outside. Slow, careful, hunting, the man raised a finger, telling her without words to stay silent. Then he moved, smooth, quick, toward the entrance. He pressed his back to the wall, listening. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a sharp clicking sound echoed, almost like claws tapping against ice. Lyra's heart pounded. She knew that sound. Alien trackers. Not the big soldiers, worse. Trackers never stopped once they caught a scent. And they always brought the soldiers behind them. The man glanced over his shoulder at her. "Don't move," he whispered. "Don't speak, no matter what you hear." Before she could answer, he stepped outside into the snowstorm. The sound changed instantly. Footsteps speeding up, claws scraping, snow being thrown into the air. Then came a deep, throaty growl that made her skin crawl. The firelight flickered. As shadows moved on the walls, there was a short, sharp sound, not metal on metal, but something slicing through flesh. Then another, and another. The growl turned into a scream. Not a human scream. Silence again. Lyra held her breath, her baby, pressed so tightly against her chest she could feel his tiny heartbeat. Then the man returned. Snow clung to his armor, but none of it was white. It was dark red. "They were scouts," he said simply, as if that explained everything. Lyra swallowed hard. Why? Why would they send scouts here? No one lives here anymore. The man's eyes went to the baby. His face stayed calm, but his voice was lower now. "They weren't looking for you. They were looking for him." Her arms tightened around her child. "That's impossible. Ate, he's just a baby." The man sat down across from her, placing his weapon beside him. "To you, maybe? To them, he's something else entirely." She shook her head. "I don't understand. You don't have to." "Not yet," he said. "But you need to know this. As long as they believe your child is alive, they will keep coming. And they will send worse than trackers." For a long moment, only the fire spoke between them. Lyra could hear the crack of wood, the hiss of melting snow. She studied him in the dim light. His armor looked old, but strong, not alien-made human. She could see scratches and dents that told a story of years in battle. He had a scar running from his jaw to his neck, disappearing under the collar of his armor. His hands were steady, not trembling from the cold at all. Finally, she asked the question she had been holding back since she woke. "Why did you save me?" The man didn't look at her right away. His gaze stayed on the fire. "Because I was." "Told to?" "Told." "By who?" "By someone who knew I would find you," he said, his voice steady, as if the answer was obvious. "And because you're not the one they fear. It's him." The baby stirred in her arms, letting out a small whimper. Lyra rocked him gently, but something strange caught her eye. For just a moment, she saw a faint glow under his skin, like a tiny blue spark moving beneath the surface. It was gone as quickly as it appeared. She blinked. "Did you see that?" The man finally looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something in his expression that wasn't calm. It was urgency. "Yes," he said quietly. "That's why we don't have much time." Outside, the wind rose again, howling through the broken streets. But this time, it wasn't just wind. There was a deeper sound under it, a mechanical hum, steady and cold. Lyra knew that sound too. Alien drones, not one. Many. The man stood, pulling a smaller weapon from his belt. "Pack what you can carry. We leave now." She stared at him, in disbelief. "In this storm? We won't last 5 minutes out there. If we stay here," he said, "we won't last 30 seconds." He moved quickly, kicking dirt and snow over the fire until the room went dark. Only the faint glow from the doorway lit the shelter now. He pulled the cloak tighter around her and her baby, then strapped the bundle of food to her back. When he was done, he looked her in the eyes. "From here on, you walk where I walk. Step where I step. No noise, no questions. Do you understand?" Lyra nodded, though fear clawed at her chest. They stepped outside into the storm. The wind bit her face. Instantly. But the man kept moving, his steps sure and silent. She followed as best she could, holding her baby close. In the distance, through the sheets of snow, she saw the drones. Black shapes with glowing red eyes, gliding low over the ground, scanning. The man led her into the shadow of a collapsed building, then into a narrow alley where the snow piled deep. For a moment, it seemed like they were safe. Then one of the drones turned sharply in the air. Its red light locked on them. The hunt begins. Snow exploded under their feet as the man pulled Lyra into the open. The drone's red light locked on them, bright and sharp against the white storm. It let out a metallic screech, and instantly the sky answered, more lights, more shadows moving through the snow. "They've seen us," Lyra cried. "I know," the man said, his voice hard. "Keep moving." They ran. The snow was deep, slowing Lyra's steps, but the man moved like the cold didn't touch him. He stayed in front, cutting a path through the drifts, making sure she stepped exactly where he stepped. Behind them, the hum of the drones grew louder. They were fast, faster than anything human could build. Suddenly, the man stopped and threw his arm out to block her from the shadows ahead. Shapes moved, not drones this time. They were tall, walking on 2 legs, with armor that seemed to grow out of their skin. Their eyes glowed a pale, icy blue. Trackers, Lyra. Single quotes as breath caught in her throat. She had heard stories about them. Half beast, half machine. Born only 2. Hunt, one of them raised its head and sniffed the air. A low growl rumbling from its chest. The man didn't move for a heartbeat. Then, in one sudden motion, he shoved Lyra into the hollow of a collapsed wall. "Stay there. Don't move until I say." Before she could argue, he stepped out into the open. The first tracker lunged, moving faster than her eyes could follow. But the man was faster. His humming blade flared to life, slicing through the creature in one strike. Steam hissed as its body hit the snow. The others roared and charged. The fight was a blur of steel and movement. The man's blade cut arcs through the air, leaving glowing trails. Trackers fell one after another, but for each one that fell, more seemed to come. Lyra pressed herself against the wall, her baby tight in her arms. The sounds of the fight shook her, the clash of metal, the growls, the hiss of snow melting on hot blood. One tracker broke past the man. It landed near Lyra, snow flying up in a spray. Its glowing eyes locked on her baby. Lyra's scream froze in her throat. Before she could move, the tracker reached for the child and stopped. Its head tilted, its claws trembling. For a moment, it made a strange sound, almost like a whimper. Then, without warning, its body shook violently and it collapsed. Smoke rising from under its skin. Lyra stared, her heart racing. She didn't understand. The tracker had been about to kill them, and then it was just dead. The man appeared beside her, pulling her to her feet. "We have to go. Now, what happened to it?" she asked, looking at the dead tracker. "Not now," he said sharply, grabbing her hand. They ran again, weaving through the ruins. The storm was thicker now, hiding their path but also hiding the enemy. The man led her into a narrow passage between two frozen buildings. The walls leaned toward each other, blocking the wind. They stopped for a moment, both breathing hard, though Lyra noticed the man's breath was steady, controlled, as if the fight hadn't touched him. "Listen to me," he said, his voice low. "Those trackers weren't here by chance. They were sent straight for you." "No," Lyra said, shaking her head. "I'm no one." "I'm just your child, isn't?" he cut in. Her arms tightened around the baby. "Why? What is he?" The man's eyes met hers. "He's the reason I came here. The reason I was told to find you. And the reason the aliens will never stop hunting you." Before she could speak, a deep, rumbling horn sounded in the distance. The man's expression darkened. "They've called in the harvesters." Lyra didn't know the name, but she could tell from his tone that it was bad. "What's a harvester?" she asked. "You don't want to find out," he said, starting forward again. They pushed on, the snowstorm swallowing them whole. But the sound behind them grew louder, heavy steps, not like the quick trackers or the hovering drones. This was something huge. The ground began to shake. Lyra stumbled, almost falling, but the man caught her. "Keep your eyes forward," he ordered. She couldn't. She turned her head and through the curtain of snow. She saw it, a towering machine creature with legs like spears and a body made of black armor plates. Its head was a cage of steel, and inside, something alive pulsed with a sick green light. The harvester let out a scream that rattled her bones. The man stopped, scanning their surroundings. "We can't outrun it in the open. We need to lose it in the old tunnels." They reached the edge of a collapsed street. Below, a dark hole yawned in the ice, an entrance to the tunnels that once ran under the city. The man looked at her. "Can you climb down?" She nodded, though her legs trembled. He jumped down first, then reached up to guide her. The cold air from below was even sharper, and the smell of old metal and earth filled her nose. The harvester's steps grew closer. Snow fell from the walls with each tremor. "Hurry," the man said, pulling her into the darkness. As they moved deeper into the tunnel, the sounds from above faded, replaced by the dripping of water and the echo of their own steps. But just when Lyra thought they had escaped, she heard it, a faint mechanical hum. Coming from ahead, the man stopped, his weapon rising again. "They're here too, okay?" he said. The secret in the child the tunnel was black except for those two red lights. Ahead, glowing like the eyes of something that did not belong in this world. Lyra froze. Her arms tightened around her baby until he whimpered softly. The sound echoed down the tunnel like a whisper of fear. The man stepped in front of her, his blade humming to life with a faint blue light. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. Then the voice came again, cold, sharp, without emotion. "Bring me the child." From the shadows, two shapes emerged. They weren't like the tall trackers or the towering harvester. These were smaller, their bodies smooth and silver, their movements too perfect to be alive. Drones, but not the flying kind. These ones walked, their legs bending backward like insects. Long arms ended in needle-like fingers that gleamed in the dim light. One of them tilted its head. "The child carries the code. Hand him over, and you may live." Lyra's chest tightened. "What code? What are you talking about?" The drone didn't answer. It stepped forward, the needles in its hands clicking together. The man moved first. His blade flashed, cutting one of the drone's legs clean off. Sparks filled the air, and the machine fell, still reaching for Lyra as it crashed to the ground. The second drone darted around the man, moving faster than she thought possible. Its arms shot toward her. She stumbled back, but before it could touch her, her baby cried. A sharp, loud sound that didn't seem like a normal cry at all. For a moment, the air around them shimmered like heat rising from fire. A pulse of soft blue light burst from the baby's small body. The drone stopped in mid-step. Its arms jerked violently. Its glowing red eyes flickered, and then silence. It collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Lyra stood frozen, staring at the machine's body, then at her child. "What was that?" she whispered. The man didn't look surprised. He kicked the drone aside and grabbed her hand. "That was why they want him, and why we can't stay here." She pulled her hand back. "No, I need answers. What did my son just do?" The man's jaw tightened. "He carries something inside him, something they fear, something powerful. What is it?" "I don't know everything," the man admitted. "But I know this. It's not just in his blood. It's part of him. Something ancient, something human." They moved deeper into the tunnels. The air grew warmer here, carrying the smell of earth instead of snow. The walls glistened with melting ice, and the ground was uneven, filled with old metal beams and broken pipes. Lyra kept looking down at her son. He seemed calm again, his tiny fingers curled around the edge of the blanket. If not for what she had just seen, she might have believed it had all been her imagination, but it wasn't. She could still see the faint blue glow under his skin, like veins of light, hidden but alive. Before the war, the man said as they walked, there were rumors that the aliens feared a certain kind of human, one who could connect to their machines and destroy them from the inside. That's why they tried to wipe us all out. That's why humans are almost gone. Lyra's steps slowed. "You're saying?" "My child is one of those." The man glanced at her. "I'm saying your child might be the last one." She felt her knees weaken. "Then they'll never stop hunting him." "That's why we have to reach the resistance," he said. "They can protect him and use what's inside him to end this war." They stopped at a wide metal door, half buried in ice. The man pressed his palm to a panel beside it. A light blinked. Then the door groaned open, revealing another stretch of tunnel beyond. But as they stepped through, a faint sound followed them, the distant echo of heavy steps. Lyra's heart sank. "They found us again." "Maybe," the man said, closing the door behind them. "Or maybe they never lost us." The tunnel ahead led into a massive underground chamber. Rusted machines stood silent in the corners, their purpose long forgotten. Pipes hung from the ceiling, dripping water into shallow pools. "This used to be a power station," the man explained. "The resistance uses places like this to hide. Then we're safe," Lyra asked. "Safe is a word I don't use," he said, "but we might have a few hours." They settled in a corner where the light from the man's small fire device reached. Lyra sat with her back against a wall, rocking her baby gently. For the first time since she met him, the man removed his chest armor. Beneath it, his body was marked with scars, not just from blades or bullets, but strange, circular burns that looked almost like brands. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "The aliens did that to you?" "Some of them," he said. "Some weren't aliens." Before she could ask what he meant, a sharp beep came from somewhere in the chamber. The man froze. "That's not ours." From the shadows above, a small sphere dropped silently to the floor. A scout probe, its lens whirred as it scanned the room. Locking instantly on the baby, the man grabbed his weapon. But before he could strike, the baby opened his eyes. They were glowing blue. The frozen escape the explosion from the probe was small, but in the silence of the underground chamber, it was deafening. The blast lit the walls in white light for a moment, then darkness rushed back, leaving only the faint glow of the man's weapon. Lyra blinked away the spots in her vision. Her baby was calm again, his tiny chest rising and falling in steady breaths. The blue light in his eyes fading as quickly as it had appeared. The man was already moving, checking the remains of the probe. The small machine was nothing but twisted. Metal now, but his expression was grim. "They know exactly where we are," he said. "We have minutes." He grabbed his gear and began packing quickly. "We can't stay underground anymore. They'll flush us out. We head for the mountains." Lyra's heart sank. She remembered the stories. The mountains were colder, more dangerous, filled with things that even the aliens avoided. "The mountains will kill us before they do," she said. The man looked at her, his eyes hard, but not unkind. "The mountains are the only place left they can't fully control. You want him alive?" He nodded toward the baby. "Then we move." They left the chamber, following a narrow tunnel until it ended in a vertical shaft. Cold air poured down from above. The man climbed first, his gloved hands gripping old metal rungs that creaked under his weight. When he reached the top, he pulled Lyra and the baby up with surprising strength. She gasped as they emerged into the open world again. The storm had cleared, but the air was sharper. The snow blinding under the pale light of a moon that hung low in the sky, far in the distance. Black shapes moved, alien flyers sweeping the ground with searchlights. The man studied the horizon, then pointed toward a jagged line of peaks. That way, they began to climb through deep snow. The man moved at a steady pace, scanning the ground and the sky with every step. Lyra followed closely, her legs aching, her breath turning to ice in the air. It wasn't just cold here. It felt alive, like the wind itself was watching them. Every gust carried strange sounds, faint cries. The scrape of something against rock, the whisper of snow shifting under unseen weight. Lyra shivered. What else lives out here? Things that were here before the war, the man said. And some that came after, passed. The sky began to lighten with the first hints of dawn, painting the snow in shades of blue and silver. They reached a narrow ridge where the wind was so strong it almost pushed Lyra off her feet. The man caught her arm and guided her along the edge until they reached a shallow cave carved into the rock. "We rest here," he said, setting down his pack. Lyra sat, wrapping the baby in the thick cloak. For a moment, she thought they might finally have a chance to breathe. But the man stayed at the cave entrance, scanning the snow below. She watched him, noticing again how he didn't seem to tire the way she did. "You've been running for a long time, haven't you?" she asked. "Longer than I remember," he said, without turning. Suddenly, he tensed. "Get down." Lyra dropped low, clutching the baby. From far below, a deep, rhythmic thud echoed through the mountains. It was slow but powerful, each impact sending a faint vibration through the ground. The man's eyes narrowed. Harvesters. They're moving. In from the south. Her stomach tightened. How did they find us so fast? They don't need to find us, he said. They already know where we're going, which means... He stopped, listening. From the opposite direction came another. Sound lighter, faster, but just as dangerous. The barking of alien hounds. They're trying to corner us, he said. We can't stay on the ridge. He pulled her to her feet and led her toward a steep slope of snow and ice. We go down the hard way. Lyra stared at the slope. It was almost vertical. We'll die, not if you trust me. He tied a rope around her waist, securing her to him. Hold the baby tight. Keep your body against the slope. Don't fight the slide, guide it. Before she could argue, he stepped backward and pulled her with him. The world became a blur of white and wind. Snow exploded around them as they slid down the mountainside, bouncing off rocks and chunks of ice. Lyra kept her body curled around the baby, feeling the man's steady weight behind her. They hit the bottom hard, rolling to a stop. Her heart pounded, but they were alive. They didn't have time to recover. The barks were louder now, echoing. Through the valley, the man pulled her into a narrow gap between two cliffs, where the snow was thin and the ground frozen hard. This way, he said, his voice low. The ice tunnels are close. They moved quickly, their footsteps echoing. Strangely, in the narrow space, the air grew colder again, and faint blue light began to shimmer ahead. They stepped into a vast cavern, its walls made of pure ice that glowed from within. Strange patterns pulsed faintly in the frozen surface, like veins of light running deep. Into the mountain, Lyra's breath caught. What is this place? The man's voice was almost a whisper. Something old. Something human. Before all of this. Her baby stirred in her arms, his skin faintly glowing again, and the ice around them responded. The blue veins brightening as if waking up. The man looked at the child, then at the glowing walls. For the first time since she met him, he looked. Unsure, the heart of the mountain, the voice rolled through the ice cavern, deep and calm, yet heavy with power. Lyra froze, clutching her baby tighter. Her breath made tiny clouds in the cold air. The man didn't move, but his hand went to his weapon. Show yourself, he called. The blue light in the walls pulsed once, twice, and then a section of the ice cracked and slid open, revealing a dark passage. Warm air flowed from within, carrying a faint smell of metal and smoke. The voice came again, softer this time. Follow the light, guardian. The child has little time. Lyra's eyes darted to the man. Guardian, she whispered. He didn't answer. His jaw was tight, and he stepped into the passage without hesitation. Lyra followed, the baby in her arms. The walls closed behind them with a low rumble, sealing out the cold. The tunnel was lit by strips of pale blue light embedded in the floor. The deeper they went, the warmer it became. The walls turned from ice to smooth steel, old but strong. With markings, she didn't recognize curved lines and symbols that seemed to shift when she looked at them too long. The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. Lyra gasped. People, dozens of them. Humans. Some wore scavenged armor like the man's. Others patched clothing made from old fabrics. They were gathered around long tables, working on weapons, repairing gear, or studying maps. When they saw the man, they stopped and stared. A ripple of whispers passed through the crowd. A tall woman with a scar across her cheek stepped forward. You actually found them, she said. The man nodded. We were tracked all the way here. You need to seal the outer tunnels. She gave a sharp signal, and several people rushed to obey. Lyra could hardly breathe. She had thought the man might be the last human, but here they were. Real, alive. The woman's eyes fell on the baby. Us. Something changed in her expression. "So it's true," she murmured. "He carries the code." Lyra's voice trembled. "Everyone keeps saying that. What is it? What does it mean?" The woman didn't answer right away. Instead, she led them to a raised platform at the far end of the chamber. There, standing in the center, was a massive circular machine, half buried in the rock. Its surface was covered in the same strange markings as the tunnel. "This," the woman said, "is the heart of the mountain. A human ship, older than the war, older than the aliens." The man glanced at Lyra. "This is why they want your son. He can wake it." Lyra shook her head. "Wake it? He's just a baby." The woman's gaze was steady. "He's more than that. The code isn't just knowledge. It's alive. It chooses a host, and only that host can command machines like this." The man added quietly when he cried in the tunnels, and those drones shut down. That was only a fraction of what he can do. Lyra felt the floor sway beneath her, though she knew it was only her own shock. If this ship can destroy them, why hasn't it been used already? The woman's voice dropped. "Because it's sleeping. And it will only wake for the one who carries the code. That's your son." Before Lyra could respond, a loud metallic thud shook the chamber. Everyone turned, another thud. Then another. Dust rained from the ceiling. The man's expression darkened. "They've found the mountain." An alarm blared. Resistance fighters grabbed weapons and rushed to defensive positions. The woman barked orders. "Get the child too. The core. If they breach the walls, it's over." The man moved fast, guiding Lyra toward a narrow stair that spiraled down into the depths of the ship. The deeper they went, the louder a low hum became a heartbeat in the walls. At the bottom, they entered a small chamber lit entirely by a soft, golden glow. In the center was a seat carved into the metal surrounded by cables and strange crystal shapes. The man gestured to it. "Place him here." Lyra hesitated. "What? Will it do to him?" The man's voice softened. "I don't know, but it's the only chance we have." She stepped forward, her arms trembling. Gently, she set her son in the seat. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his eyes opened, glowing a deep, bright blue. The crystals lit up, one by one, in a pattern that raced up the walls. The hum grew louder, filling the air with a strange, warm pressure. Above them, faint echoes of battle reached their ears. Gunfire, alien screeches, the roar of something huge. The man stood between Lyra and the door, weapon ready. "They'll try to stop this. We hold them here until it's done." The baby reached out a tiny hand and touched one of the glowing crystals. The ship answered, the floor vibrated, and a deep voice, the same one from the cavern, spoke again. "Core. Awakening. Defense protocols engaged." From somewhere far above, the sound of massive machinery groaning to life shook the mountain. But then came another sound. The shriek of alien metal tearing through walls. The man tightened his grip on his weapon. There inside, Lyra's breath caught as shadows moved in the doorway. Alien soldiers, tall, armored, their weapons aimed. Behind them, she could hear the heavier steps of something much worse. The man stepped forward, his voice steady. "Stay behind me." The last warmth the chamber blazed with white light. The aliens staggered back, shielding their eyes as the glow from the baby's small body spread to the walls, the floor, and the crystals surrounding the seat. The hum of the mountain ship grew into a deep, steady pulse, like the heartbeat of something waking after centuries of sleep. The man didn't hesitate. He charged forward, his blade flashing through the blinding light. The first alien fell before it could fire, its weapon clattering to the floor. The others tried to push through, but every time they stepped closer, the ship seemed to fight back. Panels in the walls slid open, releasing beams of blue energy that struck the intruders, sending them crashing to the ground. Lyra stood frozen, torn between fear and awe. She looked at her son, still sitting in the crystal seat. His eyes glowing so brightly they didn't look human anymore. Yet his face was calm. Peaceful, almost as if he understood what he was doing. The voice of the ship filled the chamber. Again deeper now, resonating through the stone and steel. Core fully active. Defensive systems online. Initiating purge. A low tremor shook the floor. Far above, the mountain groaned as if something enormous was shifting within its heart. The man glanced at Lyra. Hold on to something. Suddenly, the walls of the chamber seemed to split apart, revealing massive, ancient weapons hidden beneath layers of ice and rock. A storm of blue light roared upward, cutting through tunnels, tearing into the alien forces outside. Lyra could hear the screeches, not just of the soldiers, but of the giant machines they had brought. One by one, their sounds ended in crashes that shook the entire mountain. The man fought beside the ship's defenses, cutting down any alien that managed to slip through. His movements were sharp, efficient, every strike protecting the space between the enemy and the child. But the aliens didn't retreat. They kept coming, desperate to end what the boy had started. One of them, larger than the rest, with armor black as night, broke through the defenses and charged toward the seat. Lyra screamed. The man moved to intercept, but the alien slammed him into the wall, his blade skidding across the floor. The creature raised a claw toward the baby. Then the baby looked up. His tiny hand lifted, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. The air shimmered, and the alien froze in place, its armor cracking as blue light spread through its body. The creature let out a low, strangled roar, then shattered into dust that blew away in the glow. The man pushed himself off the wall. Breathing hard, but still standing, he met Lyra's eyes. "He's stronger than I thought." The ship's voice came again. Purge complete. External threat eliminated. Preparing to seal core, the glow around the baby began to fade. His eyes slowly returned to their natural color, and his head tipped forward. Heavy with exhaustion, Lyra rushed to him, scooping him into her arms. His small body was warm, warmer than she had felt since the night they met the man. She held him close, tears slipping down her cheeks. "It's over," she whispered. "We're safe now." The man retrieved his blade and walked toward them. He looked at the boy, then at Lyra. "For now," he said quietly, "but this isn't the end. They'll come again." Lyra nodded. She knew he was right, but for this moment, she didn't care. For the first time in years, the air around her wasn't filled with the sound of enemies hunting them. Back in the main chamber, the surviving humans of the Resistance gathered. The tall woman with the scar approached, a rare smile breaking across her face. "You did it," she told the man. He shook his head. No, he did it. He looked at the baby, and for the first time, Lyra thought she saw something almost like pride in his eyes. The woman's voice grew serious. "The code is awake now. That means the fight changes. We have a weapon they can't stop." Lyra's grip on her child tightened. She wasn't sure she liked the word weapon used for him, but she understood why it mattered, as the Resistance prepared to rebuild their defenses. The man came to stand beside her. "You could stay here," he said. "Elaprat." "You?" Lyra looked down at her baby. She thought about the cold streets, the endless running, the fear in every shadow. And she thought about the man who had found her in the snow, who had given them warmth when she had been ready to close her eyes for the last time. "No," she said softly. "Where you go, we go." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Then you'd better learn how to fight." Lyra gave a faint smile. "I already have something worth fighting for." Later, when the fires were burning low and the mountain was quiet again, Lyra sat with her child wrapped in the same thick cloak the man had given her that first night. Snow still fell outside, but it couldn't touch them here. The air was warm. The light gentle. Her son stirred in his sleep. A faint blue glow pulsing once under his skin before fading again. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "Whatever you are, whatever you'll be, you're mine." In the shadows near the doorway, the man stood watch, his weapon in hand. His eyes scanning the dark. He didn't smile, but there was something softer in his face now, the smallest sign of peace. For tonight, the mountain was theirs.